Hey guys, so I'm back. I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately because just summer's been ramping up and ramping down, and there's all kinds of birthday parties, and I don't have the space and the time to do the videos that I want, but I decided to make a really quick one today because something really crazy happened at work. So what we are looking at, just to get right down to it, is the front of the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And this is the main performance center for the Los Angeles Philharmonic, which I work for. And a few years ago, supposedly, there was a collar and bow tie architectural piece supposed to be in front of them. So it's supposed to be in front of the Walt Disney Concert Hall, commissioned and or collaborated with Frank Gehry, who designed the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Frank Gehry is an amazing modern architect, and he designed the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and I really like him. I have a kinship with him because we have the same birthday. February 28th, the day before leap year. So he teamed up with Klaus Oldenburg, another really famous modern artist whom I only ever found out about by being in, well, I worked on the movie Clueless, and he was mentioned in Clueless. So Klaus Oldenburg was one of the designers of this piece, and it was a really treasured conceptual art piece for the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And apparently certain people have really incredible memories about it. So one of our patrons called the other day, and she called in, and this is just sort of a write-up of the general conversation that she had with one of our reps. And she said, so-and-so was asking about the collar and bow tie sculpture that briefly occupied a space in front of the Walt Disney Concert Hall on Grand Avenue. She believes it was created by Oldenburg and Van Bruggen, which it was. Klaus Oldenburg and his wife, I can't remember her first name, Van Bruggen. She was asking if the LA Phil still had it in storage somewhere, and if it might ever be shown again. She said she and her husband would like to see it again, if possible. I told her I thought it had been destroyed, or destroyed enough so that the original collar and tie design was no longer the same, but I'm not sure. I also explained / reminded her that the sculpture was falling down or falling apart, which is why it was originally taken down. She just wanted to ask and have her feedback about the sculpture shared with the LA Phil. Only problem is, this never actually happened. And I asked my boss about it, who's been here longer than anybody. And she said, no, that was a concept. It never happened. Dispute over Disney Hall's collar and bow finally tied up. Perhaps the least glorious chapter in the creation of Walt Disney Concert Hall has finally ended in a confidential settlement of the 2-year lawsuit over collar and bow tie. And as you can see above, this article was written in April 29th, 2009, so it was written in 2009. The gigantic sculpture that architect Frank Gehry envisioned extending a lighthearted greeting from the concert hall's doorstep until literally began to fall apart during fabrication. So it actually fell apart during fabrication. Gehry started the ball rolling for the 65-foot-high depiction of formal wear, seemingly tossed casually aside on the sidewalk at First Street and Grand Avenue after learning in 1993 that his friend Klaus Oldenburg and Kustja Van Bruggen, that's what it is, Kustja. I love how Klaus spells his name. It looks like Klaus Oldenburg. I always want to call him Klaus Van Oldenburg, but it's not. So Klaus Oldenburg and Kustja Van Bruggen have been considering festooning some landscape or other with a vastly oversized bow tie. The married couple are famed for their giant, playful, site-specific sculptures. 6 years ago, the artist signed a $2.2 million contract with a music center. So that would have been 2003 if this article was written in 2009. Disney Hall's landlord. Collar and bow was to be delivered by August 2004, but the initial fabrication company, Carlson & Co. of San Fernando, had trouble keeping the collar's aluminum skin attached to its steel and composite bones, according to court papers, and the cost ballooned to $3.8 million. The timetable for delivery was pushed back to August 2006, and the new fabricators were hired. The second deadline passed, and it all ended in contention in February 2007 when the Music Center, LA's hub for the performing arts, took the unusual step of suing the pop art eminences it had commissioned. The suit accused Oldenburg and Van Bruggen, who by then was fighting metastatic breast cancer that took her life in January, of this year age 66, of negligence, breach of contract, and unjust enrichment. It added an allegation of fraud against Carlson & Co., which had worked with the Dutch-born Van Bruggen and Swedish native Oldenburg on past projects. The Music Center also made claims against Engelberg and Sebel, the project's consulting engineers, and Westerly Marine and Orange County custom boat builders that had been brought into help solve problems with the collar. The total damages to the Music Center came to more than $6 million in payment, and the artist had other expenses. Its attorney David Lira said in an interview last year cross complaints among the defendants and sued. So the sculpture never happened because they could never get it to stay up. And apparently the metal outer part would not stick to the mid-inner frame, and they were afraid of things like earthquakes or storms, which is a laugh riot, would get it unlodged. But the crazy thing is they build, metal sculptures all the time. I mean, this sculpture at my alma mater, well, not alma mater, but UMass, in front of the UMass Fine Arts Center, has been standing since 1972, and it's still there. And they never had any problems with it. So I'm not sure what the difference is between this and this. I mean, sure, it's turned sort of upside down and lying on its back like a turtle, but I don't understand why they couldn't get, if they can get the one sculpture that's been standing since 1972 to stay, why they couldn't do that with this. But regardless, this is really strange, and I asked the rep who helped the woman. Well, first of all, the woman called, and I talked to her, and I said, yeah, that project never happened, it just didn't work out, nothing would stay together. And the woman said to me, no, I was there, I saw it. So she claims she was there and she saw it, and she didn't sound senile, and she had a perfectly coherent conversation with the rep who took her call. Another eerie coincidence is that this woman who called in is married to a man with the name of a dead celebrity. It's just an odd cross-referential coincidence. I mean, it's a slightly common name, so I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, but I just thought it was really strange. Think trial of the century. He was involved in the trial of the century. But so that was really strange. And then I talked to the rep who took the call, and the rep said, oh, no, this sculpture was there for just 2 weeks. It just didn't stay up. It fell down. But that makes no sense either, because later in the article it says, under the settlement, collar and bow, or the 65% of it that was finished, so only 65% of it was finished, it will be destroyed. Under settlement, collar and bow, or the 65% of it that was finished will be destroyed, Oldenburg said. It had lain forlorn and exposed to the elements in a yard of a big warehouse in Irvine. It had to be, at Disney or nowhere else. We select the site, and the sculpture belongs only there. Pushta felt, and I do too, that the site is taken away from us. The sculpture ceases to exist. And that's another argument they made. Somebody said, oh, well, maybe she saw it somewhere else, but not in front of the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Well, neither one of those articles fly if you read this article. So this whole thing's really weird. To me, this is my first modern art sculpture Mandela effect. It's really fascinating to me. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I heard it. And the thing of it is my one coworker remembers it being in front of the Walt Disney Concert Hall for 2 weeks. My boss, who's been working here since the 1990s, who knows everything and anything about the LA Phil, who's been here under several music directors, said, no, that never happened. And she's right, according to this universe, because it never did happen. So this thing is a mystery and enigma to me, and as far as I know, it's the first modern art Mandela effect that I've ever seen. So that's number one. Number two, I told you that story, now to tell you this one. This is a very haunting image, or at least I found it to be a haunting image of the Energizer Bunny. And what's wrong with this picture? The battery's on his back. Now, somebody could have recreated this, but even still, that's residual memory. And I saw this on Facebook last week. I then found the page that it allegedly came from. So it's an Energizer Bunny GIF site. And again, I don't know if this person who created these GIFs, they're GIFs to me. I don't know. That's a Mandela effect in and of itself. They say they're supposed to be called GIFs. I don't know if they created these GIFs and made them based on their own residual memory. They look legit to me. I mean, they definitely look like they're from commercials. That would take a lot to recreate. Well, I guess not with Photoshop, but to recreate an actual commercial like that with the bunny underwater would. But it's just all too arresting for me. And it just looks so haunting and like from a memory of distant past, of a world we never knew. Anyway, it was fascinating to me. And just to double check on my own memory, 1989, Energizer Bunny is born, and he did always have the battery in his hip. Although for some reason I'm remembering it in his foot now too. So was it in his hip or was it in his foot, you guys? I don't know. Anyway, just kind of a crazy week, seeing some residual stuff and having weird and multi-dimensional stories flying around. But it's the end of summer. What are you going to do? And supposedly we're rising to the 5th dimension, so that's another thing. Ooh, and also too, I found out this new thing about galactic signatures and kin numbers and all kinds of different things I want to share with you guys. That's Mayan astrology. That's really fascinating, but that's another story for another time. In the meantime, peace out. Hope you guys have a great rest of the summer. Mine, for whatever reason, at the end of the summer seems to get more ramped up than ever, which is just fine. All these birthdays. It's all these New Year babies. That's what's going on. Everybody's parents were having sex, so they're having babies at the end of August and early mid-September. I'm telling you what. But in any case, that's what's going on. I hope to come back with more videos way soon when things start to calm down a little after summer. And I will talk soon. All right, bye. Peace out.